Today we are going to be making a French classic millefeuille or Napoleon. I have literally never met anyone who does not love millefeuille because what is there not to love? You have flaky and buttery puff pastry and vanilla cream, and we are going to take this up a notch by adding a layer of salted caramel. So if you want to learn how to make this super easy salted caramel Napoleon, keep watching. Okay, so for the sake of baking at home and keeping this recipe foolproof, we are going to be using frozen store-bought puff pastry. If you want to be adventurous and make your own puff pastry, by all means go ahead. I do have a recipe that I've shared on my Instagram, which will be linked below. So the first step is going to be to bake off our puff pastry. We are going to start by defrosting and unfolding our puff pastry sheets and placing that on a sheet tray. Then you're going to place another piece of parchment paper on top of the puff pastry and another sheet tray on top of that so that it cooks flat and doesn't puff up too much. You can also add a weighted oven-safe bowl on top of that to create even more pressure and place this in the oven at 325 for about 15 minutes. Then we are going to pull the puff pastry out halfway through the cooking process and dust a thin and even layer of sugar to caramelize this dough, and then place it back in the oven for another 30 minutes to complete the cooking process. I always caramelize my puff pastry dough because it keeps it crisp and crunchy for up to 3 days. If you have never caramelized your puff pastry, give it a shot. You will never turn back. Traditionally, millefeuille is made and eaten on the same day because the puff pastry gets all soggy, but caramelizing your puff pastry will extend its shelf life. Then we are going to repeat this process 3 times because we need 3 layers of puff pastry, and let's move on to our salted caramel. Here I have a pot with 150 grams or 3/4 cup of sugar. We are going to begin heating this up over medium heat and leave it until it begins to caramelize. Don't forget to watch this closely so you don't burn it like I almost did, and also don't forget to like and subscribe. And once all of the sugar has caramelized, gently and slowly add in 150 grams or half a cup and 2 tablespoons of cream to the caramel. Do this in small increments, stirring in between, and please be careful because it will bubble violently. Once you add all of the cream, add in 42 grams or 3 tablespoons of butter and 2 grams or half a teaspoon of salt. Then transfer this into a bowl and set it aside to cool completely. Now let's move on to our pastry cream. Place 250 grams or 1 cup of milk and 4 grams or 1 teaspoon of vanilla paste into a pot and gently begin to heat the mixture. Then in a separate bowl, we are going to place 15 grams or 2 tablespoons of cornstarch and 65 grams or 1/3 cup of sugar in a bowl and stir that until there are no lumps. Once the mixture is thoroughly mixed, add 54 grams or 3 large egg yolks and whisk that until it's smooth. It might seem a little dry at first, but it will all come together in the end. Once your milk comes to a boil, we are going to begin tempering the egg yolks, which is a process where you pour hot milk or cream over the egg yolks and stir vigorously to gently bring up the temperature of the eggs, and then pour the egg mixture back into the bowl and whisk until it thickens to complete the egg cooking process. Once our pastry cream thickens, lower the heat and continue to whisk the eggs for 1 minute so that we can cook out the floury flavor that's present in the cornstarch. Then transfer this to a bowl, cover it with saran wrap so that we don't form a skin, and refrigerate this to cool completely. And finally, our last component is a French buttercream. Traditionally, millefeuille is filled with just pastry cream, but I find that a bit too dense and rich, so I really like to lighten my cream with this recipe. Place 1 egg and 1 egg yolk in the bowl of your stand mixer and begin to whisk that to incorporate air into the eggs. And then into the eggs, add in 1 vanilla bean pod. In a pot, place 201 grams or 1 cup of sugar with 45 grams or 1/3 cup of water to create a sandy texture, and begin to cook that to 118 degrees Celsius or until the bubbles appear thick, dense, and move slowly. Once the sugar reaches temp, begin to slowly pour that against the side of the bowl to cook our eggs, and then let that mix for a few minutes. Once the base of the bowl begins to feel neutral against your skin, you'll know that it's cool enough to begin adding in your butter. We are going to begin adding in 226 grams or 2 sticks of room temperature butter into the bowl and allow that to beat for a few minutes until your buttercream looks something like this. You want to add your butter in one at a time and allow it to completely incorporate after each addition. You also want to make sure that you're using room temperature butter or else it will never come together. Never. Now that our buttercream is done, we can fold in our pastry cream. Here I'm just adding a little bit of our buttercream into the pastry cream first to help lighten this base before we fold it into our buttercream. This will just make the mixing process a little bit easier because everything is kind of homogenized together and the textures are a bit more similar. Then combine the two gently and we are going to transfer this into a piping bag with a round tip and we are ready to assemble. For the assembly, we will need to also place our salted caramel in a piping bag as well and trim off our puff pastry. I'm trimming alongside the edges, cutting off as little as possible and then aligning all of the layers so that they're all even. We want to reserve our best looking piece for the top layer and our ugliest piece for the middle layer. To assemble, I am piping a little cream on my serving platter so that the puff pastry doesn't slide around, and then piping dollops alongside the edges and then filling in the center. You don't have to pipe dollops all the way around because you can't see the center, obviously. Then we will pipe our salted caramel evenly across the cream so that we can have the perfect bite every time. You want to repeat this process for the second layer. For the top layer, I'm using a flat edge. In this case, I'm using a bowl scraper to create a border and then dusting confection sugar across the edge. And then I am taking any leftover cream that I have and mixing it with a little bit of the leftover salted caramel to create a cream that I can decorate the top with. Then I'm going to pipe that salted caramel cream on the top of the mille-feuille in a random pattern. Here I am taking some tempered chocolate discs and dusting them lightly with gold dust and placing those on top, followed by some gold leaf. And we are ready to dig in. I just want to spend my time in your girl. And what you give me lets me know that we'll be alright. Yeah. All I have is mine. Oh, that would be enough. Till the end of time. Rest your weary heart and let your blue. 'Cause I'm gonna love you till the end of time. Boy, you got me saying, okay, you guys, that is it for today's recipe. I hope that you enjoyed this one. This recipe is outstanding and ridiculously easy, and everybody loves this. There's just nothing that needs to be said. Just like, as you can assume, it is lunchtime, which means that I need to have my slice of cake for the day. In my opinion, the best way to eat a mille-feuille is to just grab it with your hand. Enough of these formalities. Me, after watching one season of Bridgerton, enough of these formalities. My mouth is watering. Okay, fuck it. I often find that the simplest desserts are the best ones, which is why MILLE-FEUILLE is just so delicious. But that hint of salt from the caramel really helps to create another layer of flavor. So anyway, I gotta go finish my lunch. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below what other recipes you guys want to see in the new year, and I will see you next time. Bye. We could do like a double layer situation, but then you don't get the caramel cream on the top. Okay, so do like half a bite, and then another half a bite. Yeah. That's the one.
Smash the like and subscribe button and comment down below of what you want me to do.
I'm serving Montague and the Capulets right now.